Imagine coming home from deployment expecting laughter, hugs, and your little sister running into your arms, but instead, you walk into silence. That was my homecoming, 14 months away. 14 months of desert heat, sleepless nights, and counting down the days until I'd finally see Sophie again. I pictured her standing on the porch, waving like she used to when I left for basic. I pictured mom wiping her eyes, proud and smiling. But when I stepped onto that porch, something felt wrong immediately. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. The air was still, no steps, no sound. The door, unlocked. Mom never left it that way. I pushed it open, the hinges groaning. Inside, dust hung in the air. A photo frame lay shattered on the floor, one of us, all smiles, taken the day before my last deployment. The crack ran right through Sophie's face. My chest tightened. Sophie? The word echoed down the hallway, swallowed by silence. I followed it to her room. She was curled up on the bed, facing the wall. Her shoulders trembled, not from sleep, but from something worse. I stepped closer, the floor creaking. She turned, and my world stopped. A bruise, dark and ugly, spread across her cheek. A small cut lined her lip. Her eyes, once bright, full of laughter, were hollow. Sophie? My voice cracked. Her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. For a second, she froze. Then she gasped, sharp and broken, before stumbling into my arms. She clung to me like she hadn't held anyone in months. Her sobs hit like explosions, ragged, painful, real. I held her tighter, one hand on the back of her head, the other trembling on her shoulder. When her crying finally slowed, I sat her down at the kitchen table. The place looked abandoned, unopened mail stacked by the sink, dishes unwashed, curtains drawn. "What happened?" I asked softly. She hesitated, eyes darting toward the window like someone might be watching. "He told me not to tell," she whispered. "Who?" Her lip quivered. "Derek Miles, the HOA guy, the one who calls himself the HOA cop." My pulse spiked. What did he do? Her story spilled out in pieces. After mom died 3 months ago, Derek started checking in. First, he helped with groceries. Then he started showing up uninvited. Told her she was violating HOA codes, weeds in the yard, lights on too late, mail left too long in the box. Then came the shouting, the insults, the threats, and the bruises. I could feel my jaw tighten with every word. I'd faced men with rifles and grenades, but nothing made my blood boil like this. Sophie's hands shook around her teacup. He said if I told anyone, he'd kick me out. Said no one would believe me. I reached out, steadying her hand. "You did nothing wrong. You hear me? He's not touching you again." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cracked photo frame, my knuckles white, my mind cold and clear. By morning, I had a plan. Because Derek Miles was about to learn the hard way, I didn't leave my training on the battlefield. Morning felt like armor. I'd stayed up half the night pulling together everything Sophie could give me: bruises, torn clothes, the hospital note she'd been too scared to file, and I'd recorded her statement on my phone. I'd also done something else. I called the non-emergency line at the sheriff's office and left a detailed report. I didn't want a paper trail so much as I wanted backup nearby. If Derek showed, I wanted officers close enough to hear trouble start. He came at 9:40 a.m. sharp. Same fake HOA cop vest, same mirrored sunglasses, same smug walk that made my blood boil. He didn't knock. He just pounded the door with his fist. "Inspection time, open up," he barked, loud enough for the entire street to hear. He didn't knock. He never did. "Open up," Sophie jumped. When she opened the door, Derek walked right in, his boots thudding against the floor. "You think you can ignore me now?" he sneered. "Your grass, your trash cans, your noise. I've had enough of your disrespect." "Please, Sophie started, voice breaking. "Save it," Derek snapped, slamming his clipboard on the table. "One more violation and I'll evict you myself." When he raised his hand like he was about to hit her again, I moved. "Touch her," I said, my voice low, controlled. "And I'll make sure you never lift that hand again." He spun, startled. "Who the hell are? I'm her brother." I stepped closer, slow and steady. "And you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Sophie backed against the wall, shaking, whispering, "Daniel, don't." But I wasn't listening anymore. "This isn't your property," I said, cutting him off as I stepped out from the hallway. He turned, startled, then smirked. "Well, well, you must be the big brother." I met his stare. "Leave. Now." He laughed, loud, condescending. "You think you can talk to me like that? I'm HOA enforcement." "Enforcement?" I scoffed. "You're a wannabe in a vest with a badge from eBay." His expression twisted into a sneer. "You better watch yourself, tough guy. I've got authority." "Authority doesn't mean abuse," I said, taking one step closer. "You laid hands on my sister. You so much as raise your voice again, and I promise you'll regret it." That's when he made his final mistake. He reached for the pistol holstered at his hip. Not real steel, but I didn't wait to find out. Training kicked in before thought could form. I stepped in, redirecting his arm in one clean motion. He grunted, tried to swing with his free hand. Mistake number two. I ducked, drove my shoulder into his chest, and sent him crashing into the wall. The drywall cracked on impact. "Get off me!" he wheezed, but I wasn't letting him go yet. I pivoted behind him, locking his arm in a prone twist and forcing it upward. The joint popped. The kind of pop that tells you it won't be working again anytime soon. He screamed, loud. "Stay down," I ordered, but he kept struggling, tried to headbutt me. So I finished it. A quick elbow to his ribs, a solid knee into his gut, then a final push that sent him sprawling face first onto the tile. He didn't get back up. Sophie was crying, hands over her mouth. I checked his pulse, alive but barely conscious. He'd wake up with a shattered arm, broken ribs, and one hell of a headache. Sirens echoed in the distance. I'd expected them. The sheriff's deputies were already on their way, and they'd be here any minute. I turned to Sophie. "It's over," I said softly. "He's done." If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. By the time the sheriff's cruisers pulled up, the neighborhood was buzzing. Curtains fluttered, phones pointed. Everyone wanted to know why the so-called HOA cop was lying face down on my porch, his arm bent at an angle no human joint was meant to go. Deputy Morgan was first on scene. He'd read my report from the night before and recognized the address immediately. "So it's him," he muttered, crouching beside Derek's limp body. "You weren't exaggerating." "No, sir," I said evenly, standing just behind him. "He came after my sister again, tried to reach for his gun. I stopped him." Sophie stood close, trembling but safe now. The deputies moved quickly, photographing the fake vest, the pistol he dropped, and the clipboard full of bogus HOA citations. When the medics arrived, they confirmed what I already suspected: dislocated shoulder, fractured ribs, severe concussion, and a broken forearm. He was breathing, but barely conscious. He wouldn't be raising his hand to anyone again. While they worked, Morgan flipped through Derek's paperwork. "These aren't HOA forms," he said, holding one up. "These are printed templates. Guy's been faking authority this whole time." "More like abusing it," I replied, jaw tight. A few minutes later, Sheriff Holloway himself showed up. He took one look at Derek's vest and shook his head. "You the brother who filed that report last night?" "Yes, sir." He nodded. "Good. You might have just saved more than one person. We've had multiple complaints about this guy already. All women, all too scared to speak up. One said he threatened to fine her for having guests after curfew. Another said he showed up at her door armed." Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. "That's what he did to me." The sheriff's face hardened. "He's done. Impersonating an officer, unlawful entry, assault on a minor, harassment. We'll make sure it sticks." I saw Sophie's shoulders finally relax. The relief in her eyes was enough to tell me I'd done the right thing. "He's not coming back, right?" she asked softly. "Not a chance," Deputy Morgan said. "Guy's going to prison for a long time, and judging by those injuries, he won't be intimidating anyone again." By evening, the news had spread through Brook Haven. The self-proclaimed HOA cop who terrorized the neighborhood had been arrested. Real police raided his house that same night and found unregistered firearms, stacks of stolen mail, and a list of violators he'd been targeting. My sister's name circled at the top. 2 days later, Sheriff Holloway called me personally. "Just so you know," he said, "the DA's pushing for a 30-year sentence and a $200,000 fine. He'll be serving every day of it." I hung up and stepped out back. Sophie was sitting under the oak tree, sunlight on her face, a faint smile replacing months of fear. The bruises were fading, but the spark in her eyes, that was what mattered most. "Is it really over?" she asked. "It's over," I said. The silence that followed wasn't the kind that made your chest tight. It was peace, the kind you fight to earn. As for Derek, doctors said he'd never regain full strength in his right arm again. Fitting. The same hand he used to hurt others would never hold power again. What do you think, folks? Was that justice, or just me doing what any brother would have done? Tell me in the comments. What would you have done if someone hurt your family? The end.